Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
Mesothelioma is all we do. For over 10 years, we have offered a free book on mesothelioma. Call 1-800-500-1931.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Baldwin. Thanks so much for joining us for the hour. Moments from now, President Biden's COVID response team will be updating all of us on the fight against the virus. The briefing comes at really a critical moment as America is now looking at its third vaccine, with Johnson & Johnson's version of the COVID vaccine taking a big step toward getting the green light. This morning, the FDA released its data on the company's single-dose vaccine, saying it does meet the requirements for emergency use authorization. Put another way, FDA sees it as safe and effective. This Friday, an independent group of advisors to the FDA will be meeting to make their recommendation on the vaccine. So, hearing from the president's top COVID advisors and how they will describe this coming step will be very interesting. We're going to bring you that briefing from the COVID response team once it gets underway any minute now. Before then, let me bring in CNN's Sanjay Gupta. It's good to see you, Sanjay, on this J&J news. This analysis that was put out this morning you've been going through, it says that J&J, it protects well against severe disease and death. Can you put numbers to that for us? What does this mean? What is the FDA releasing with this?
Yeah, so this is the FDA's analysis now of this data. And let's put the numbers up, and I'll talk you through this a little bit.
What that means is it's great.
First of all, when we look at these numbers now in terms of how protective this vaccine is against moderate and severe disease, I can tell you that these numbers are a little different than what we first heard from Johnson & Johnson, and they're a little bit better.
Okay, let's just go for it.
The South African variant, the one that's circulating predominantly in South Africa, previously it was thought to be 57% protective against moderate and severe disease. A little bit better now. But Kate, as you can see, there's a difference, right? The US 72%, that is the coronavirus strain that is predominantly circulating here. In Latin America, that's most likely more the strain that's been circulating in Brazil, and then the variant in South Africa. There is a difference.
So
that's just something to take note of in terms of just how much of a difference these strains, how protective the vaccine will be. But it was that bottom number, to your question, 85% across the board globally, where they said it's 85% protective against severe and critical disease. No hospitalizations at 1 month. No deaths in people who received the vaccine. And that's going to be the data point, I think, that the FDA is going to be sort of largely focused on. What is the goal of the vaccine? To prevent you from getting really sick, getting hospitalizations and death. And this vaccine seems to work pretty well in that regard.
It's such good news to hear that coming out and see the FDA's analysis on this. It does, though, as everyone has started to focus so much on the efficacy level of vaccines like we have never done before. Oh, Sanjay, we're going to have to run over to the briefing right now. White House COVID response team giving their update, getting underway right now.
Families. Too many of our businesses and schools have been closed for way too long. President Biden is clear. We are at war with this virus, and we're using every resource at our disposal to defeat it. We're keeping equity at the front and center of our response, partnering with states, tribes, and territories to increase vaccinations in the hardest hit and hardest to reach communities. Increasing supply to convenient and trusted locations like community health centers. Deploying mobile units to meet people where they are. And improving data collection so that we have a better understanding of the inequities currently experienced.
When you made that, you converted that item.
Today we're announcing another action we're taking to ensure an equitable response. In the month of March, we will begin to deliver millions of masks to food banks and community health centers around the country. These are nationwide networks that serve populations hit hard by the pandemic. While masks are widely available in many different shapes and sizes, many low-income Americans still lack affordable access to this basic protection. That's why we're taking this important action to keep Americans safe. We will deliver more than 25 million masks across the country. These masks will be available at more than 1,300 community health centers and at 60,000 food pantries nationwide.
So if there's places that are locked down,
Any American who needs a mask will be able to walk into these health centers or food pantries and pick up high-quality American-made masks. These masks will be available at no cost. They'll be well-fitting cloth masks, available in children's and adult sizes, and they can be washed for reuse. All consistent with CDC guidance and all made in the USA. Once again, our decisions here have been made with equity at the center. Not all Americans are wearing masks regularly. All Americans have access, and not all masks are equal. With this action, we are helping to level the playing field, giving vulnerable populations quality, well-fitting masks. When President Biden delivered his inaugural address, he made a very clear request to the country: mask up. And he's taken action to require masks in federal buildings, on federal lands, and on public transportation like planes, trains, and buses. The action we're announcing today is a targeted step to help Americans respond to the president's challenge to mask up, to protect themselves and their fellow Americans. As we encourage people to continue to mask up, we're focused on vaccinating people quickly and equitably. Today I will give you the latest update on our execution on vaccinations in the three key areas that we're focused on: more vaccine supply, more vaccinators, and more places to get vaccinated. First, on vaccine supply. Yesterday, we announced the 5th consecutive week of supply increases to states, tribes, and territories. From 8.6 million doses when we took office to 14.5 million doses this week. That's an increase in vaccine allocations to states of nearly 70% during the Biden-Harris administration. The retail pharmacy program we launched a few weeks ago has performed well so far. And this week we will increase the allocation to pharmacies to 2.1 million doses. So with 14.5 million doses allocated to states, tribes, and territories, and 2.1 million through the federal retail pharmacy program, we've nearly doubled weekly supply of doses in just 5 weeks. Second, we're mobilizing teams to get shots in arms. We've deployed over 800 federal personnel as vaccinators, and the federal government is now funding 1,200 National Guard members to serve as vaccinators. We've also deployed 1,000 federal personnel to support community vaccination sites in operational and support roles. Third, we continue creating more places where Americans can get vaccinated. We've now expanded financial support to bolster community vaccination centers nationwide, with over $3.6 billion in FEMA funding to 44 states, tribes, and territories for vaccination efforts. We're bringing vaccinations to places communities know and trust. Community centers, high school gyms, churches, and stadiums nationwide. And we continue to work with states to set up innovative, high-volume, federally run sites that can each give over 30,000 shots a week. These sites are up and running in California and are ramping up in Texas, Florida, and Pennsylvania. We've also launched federal programs to get vaccines to pharmacies and local community health centers. As we've always said, we're committed to providing clarity on our progress, and that includes when we hit bumps in the road. Last week, we got hit with the very severe weather, which impacted the vaccination supply chain. From manufacturing to shipping to the ability to get shots in arms. The manufacturers, the shipping firms, the states, the tribes, the territories, and pharmacies work to overcome these challenges. And despite all the temporary weather-related delays, our 7-day average daily doses administered is at 1.4 million. And we've already caught up on the weather-related shipping backlog.
Well, we're just going to you on this idea.
Teams worked throughout last weekend to pack and ship doses. On Monday, yesterday, 7 million doses, 2 days ago, 7 million doses were delivered. That, coupled with the 14.5 million doses allocated this week, results in record supply going to the states.
Okay, just to be good.
We've encouraged states to get needles into arms by extending vaccine clinic hours, offering services 24 hours a day where possible,
okay, good.
adding weekend appointments, and having more staff on hand. On this point, I want to stress that if states do not have the staff to work around the clock and on the weekends, the federal government stands ready to help.
Got your satisfaction about what it is.
I also want to spend a couple of minutes on our plans for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is currently pending approval for emergency use authorization by the FDA. Yesterday, I again updated and reviewed with our nation's governors our plans to distribute the Johnson & Johnson vaccine if the EUA is granted. The governors are carefully planning their efforts and getting ready for the possible new vaccine. If authorized, we are ready to roll out this vaccine without delay. Our distribution approach will mirror the current allocations process across jurisdictions, pharmacies, and community health centers.
Clean it up.
If an EUA is issued, we anticipate allocating 3 to 4 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine next year. Johnson & Johnson has announced it aims to deliver a total of 20 million doses by the end of March. We're working with the company to accelerate the pace and time frame by which they deliver the full 100 million doses, which is required by contract by the end of June. While we await the FDA's decision, we want the American people to know that we're doing the work so that if the EUA is granted, we will waste no time getting this life-saving vaccine into the arms of Americans. With that, let me turn it over to Dr. Walensky to talk about the state of the pandemic. Dr. Walensky.
The semantic is you're basically blaming me. You're blaming me for what you wanted to do in the first place, which you wanted when victimized me from Western Mental, from crushing my molar, and that you've done in the first place. So it's really essentially all your fault anyway. So you're just trying to cover up your tar, covering up with your tar, and bureaucracies and stuff like that, and all this other stuff.
An average of 6,500 patients with COVID-19 were admitted per day, a decrease of 16% from the prior. The number of reported deaths is also dropping, with a 7-day average of slightly less than 2,000 per day. This represents a 35% decline compared to the prior week.